There's a famous dispute about the verse in this week's Torah reading that commands us to respect our elders, right? The verse in the Parsha is Mipnei Seva Takum Vehadarta Pnei Zakein. You should honor and rise before someone who's elderly. Ve'yareta Melohecha Ani Adonai. And fear the Lord, I am God. What's the dispute? What if the older person is a lousy person? Do you have to rise in front of them? Are we only talking about worthy older people? Or everybody? So this is the dispute. There is an opinion that says only if you always respect, but the obligation to rise and honor is only someone who's worthy. That's why the verse ends, V'yareta Melohecha. Remember also to fear God. And there are those who say, no, it's any older person you are obligated to rise in front of and to honor. Thank goodness the person being honored today is both worthy of our appreciation and has reached an age that we ought to celebrate and honor and rise in front of, I won't say. Bel, Mazel Tov, on your very special birthday. You are a real matriarch, not only of your beautiful family, but also of this whole congregation. You know that. Not just because of your dedication, but because through the years, we all know who you are, the values you stand for, your spirit, the way that you help others, the way that you are dedicated and loyal to the causes and people who matter to you, and because everybody looks up to you and respects you, even though you're not so tall, we do stand up before who you are as a person. And I thank you for, your family is going to thank you for the ways that you've inspired and influenced them, but I can thank you, Bel, for the ways that you've inspired and blessed us as a synagogue over the years that you've been a part of our community because of your dedication. Mazel Tov, health, happiness, many more happy birthdays. This week I also want to mention that Lou Greenbaum and his grandson Kyle are off to Israel. And I mention it because they're going to do something very special. They're going to be dedicating the ambucycle that our community raised money for through the United Hatzalah of Israel campaign, which was tremendously successful. So I thank everybody on the Israel Affairs Committee who helped champion that campaign, including Howie Price. And we're all going to be with you there in spirit, Lou, as you get to see our Beth Tikvah ambucycle, and we're so proud that you're there representing our community. Tzeitchem l'shalom, have a great, great trip. Kyle, I told you, you take care of him, okay? And he'll take care of you. And I also want to mention a great Canadian who passed away a few days ago. Rex Murphy was a good friend of Israel and of the Jewish community, and his loss is a notable and painful one. And our thoughts are with his wonderful family, somebody else whose values ought to endure as a blessing for our whole community. So here we find ourselves sandwiched, as you know, during the Israeli high holidays, the most important days in the Jewish calendar for Israel: Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaAtzmaut. Yom HaShoah veHaGevurah, the day of remembrance of the Holocaust and heroism, is marked each year on the 27th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan, which corresponds to the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. The date was selected by the Knesset in 1951 intentionally. Its placement on the calendar conveys a specific narrative, and I'm not sure we all know that it's a narrative that departed drastically from the international one at the time. International Holocaust Remembrance Day is marked on January 27th, a date selected by the United Nations because that day is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau by the Russians. But implicit in that January date is a sense of Jewish victimhood. It carries with it the message that Jews need others to provide them strength and salvation. To the Jewish people, and particularly to the young state of Israel, that message could not resonate. The new Jewish homeland was to be the proud accomplishment of a self-reliant people commanding the fate of their own destiny. Thus, the shift in date and name to something that would call attention to the pockets of resistance, the retention of dignity amid unimaginable circumstances. Nowadays, many around the world are distorting the connection of last week to this week, the commemoration of the Holocaust and the establishment of Israel. What used to be whispered in secret is now shouted out loud. There they go again, the Zionists, using their precious Holocaust to justify their state, their power, their faults, reveling in a world guilted into silence. Even those who don't make such pronouncements explicitly tend to believe that without the Holocaust there would have been no Israel. Most make this assumption in good faith. At a commemoration in Ottawa a few days ago, Prime Minister Trudeau, for example, defended Zionism in a ceremony that was about Holocaust remembrance. President Biden also speaks of his emotional connection to Israel as stemming from his father's observation of a world standing silently by in the face of Hitler. Statements like these, I think they're coming from a very good place, but they insinuate a dangerous equation, that legitimacy for Israel is rooted in the Holocaust. And nowadays, this idea fans the flames of Holocaust denial and perverts the legacy of the Holocaust for those who continue to believe that Israel is not a legitimate state. Holocaust denial is not as simple as we sometimes make it out to be. There is what Deborah Lipstadt calls hardcore Holocaust denial. That's the assertion that the Holocaust didn't happen. Someone expressing such a view is expressing something so ridiculous and such a denial of evidence of fact that, I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't even have to engage with such a person. It's off the charts cuckoo, just pure anti-Semitism. But Holocaust denial is any attempt to negate the established facts of the Nazi genocide of European Jews. And it includes soft-core Holocaust denial. That means Holocaust minimization, the notion that 6 million is an exaggerated number. It includes Holocaust equalization, the notion that there were other genocides and ethnic cleansings and that the Holocaust is nothing special. It includes Holocaust marginalization, the notion that other people were also killed in the war, and the Jews aren't so special. And perhaps most common today is Holocaust reversal, the notion that what the Nazis did to the Jews is what the Jews are doing to others, particularly to the Palestinians. Zionists are the new Nazis. This kind of Holocaust denial was a major theme of Soviet propaganda in the 70s and 80s. Today, it is pervasive in pro-Palestinian circles, equating Zionism with Nazism, using language like genocide, and ethnic cleansing. Our enemies not only delegitimize Israelis, they know what they are doing using this language. They are justifying persecution and violence against Israelis as virtuous. Another falsehood common in today's pro-Palestinian circles is that Palestinians are the secondary victims of the Holocaust. To the untrained ear, the case sounds logical. In their narrative, after World War II, the Western powers decided to dump the surviving Jews on unsuspecting Arabs who were living in an area that colonial Europe controlled. This convenient solution resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been homeless and occupied ever since. It is no accident that last week a group of protesters waving Palestinian flags heckled survivors who were participating on the March of the Living at Auschwitz. How much of a degenerate human being do you have to be to protest at Auschwitz on Yom HaShoah? But it's all very strategic. Some of the pro-Palestinian hecklers were even wearing yellow stars. They are saying to these survivors and to our children who are marching with them that because of what was done to you, you feel you have the right to do the same unto us. It is victim blaming at its worst. Chaim Weizmann once famously said, "Our tragedy is that we always have to explain ourselves." We should be very clear about the real relationship between the Holocaust and the State of Israel. And it's why I think we ought to revisit that Knesset decision to mark Yom HaShoah last week, that decision of 1951. Israel exists not because the West dumped its surviving Jews into the colonial-controlled Middle East. Israel exists because we, the Jews, willed it into being. We are the descendants of the Jews who were sovereign in this land in ancient times. We are the indigenous people of this land. We preserved our separate existence as a people and paid a very high price for doing so across the generations. The modern state of Israel exists because for centuries we kept yearning for Israel, ending the Passover Seder and all our happy occasions with the words, L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. The modern state of Israel exists thanks to visionary Jewish thinkers and leaders who realized that changing times created an opportunity to turn our messianic hope into a political program. They were able to mobilize sympathy and support in critical junctions for their project. I watched Prime Minister Trudeau's speech last week at the ceremony on Yom HaShoah, and he finally got it right towards the end when he said, and he should be applauded for what he said, that he believes in the Jewish people's, quote, right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland, end quote. That is Zionism. There is a strong connection between the Shoah and Zionism, but it is not a relationship of causality. It's the idea that if we had a state of Israel to begin with, the Holocaust might not have taken place. Jews would have been able to escape Europe in what was already a widely supported emerging state. They would have had somewhere to go when Hitler was still allowing Jews to immigrate, and countries like Canada were saying none is too many. That is the connection between last week and this week. To portray Israel as the outcome of the Holocaust is to broadcast the exact message that the Knesset wanted to avoid in 1951. They did not want the Holocaust ever cited as a source of legitimacy for the state. They did not want Israel to be seen as a consolation prize or a pity project. It's not only undesirable to have this as the myth behind Israel's foundation, it's also not true. Marking Yom HaShoah at this time on the calendar reminds us of our agency, our history, our historical connection to the land of Israel, and our yearning to return to it. It allows us to pay tribute to all that was dreamt, written, done, and achieved by Zionism before the war. We are not a colonial sympathy project of guilty Europeans. Zionism is the national liberation project of an indigenous people reclaiming their homeland. It will not be marked this week at Yad Vashem, but on the hill next to it, at the grave of Zionism's founder, Theodor Herzl. Though it officially turns 76 years old, we sing every Shabbat in this congregation, HaTikvah Bat Shnot Alpayim. It is the culmination of 2,000 years of hope and longing. This year's celebrations, of course, will be the most difficult, emotional, and complex in recent memory. I remind everyone that the full name of Yom HaZikaron, which is on Monday, is Yom HaZikaron Lechalelei Ma'archot Yisrael Ulenifge'ei Peulot Ha'eva, Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers of the wars of Israel and victims of terrorism. And so especially our thoughts and prayers this year will be with the thousands of families who have fresh graves to cry over. As I said at Yizkor last week, the pain and heartache this year is beyond words. But we are not just victims. After we mourn, the flag will be raised, and we will remember that we are that people that still commands the fate of our own destiny, just as the state's founders wanted to remind us. We will focus on the survival of the state of Israel over its oppressors, over its demonizers, over its delegitimizers, not only its physical survival, but the triumph of the Jewish spirit, the ability of those survivors and our children to walk past those protesters at Auschwitz with their heads held high. Jewish values, Jewish ideals. We'll focus on our hostages. We will pray that they come home soon. We'll focus on the injured. We'll make sure that they and their families have everything they need to heal. And we will focus on all of our soldiers who are battling right now to slaughter the beast that tried to destroy us. May God protect them and send them every success. From our mourning, we will transition to a 76-year celebration. Let us be grateful that we have lived to see the fulfillment of God's promises to us, articulated in Amos's closing verses in last week's Haftarah. V'shavti et shvut ami Yisrael, uvanu arim neshamot ve'yashavu v'nat'u chramim, v'shatu et yenam, ve'asu ganot, ve'achlu et prihem. I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. Uneta'atim al admatam velo yitnashu od me'al admatam asher natati lahem. I will plant Israel in their own land, and I will never uproot them again from the land that I have given them. Thus says the Lord. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Atzmaut Sameach to all of us.